Alright, so what's up guys? So here we are, out here, back on live, streaming on Twitch. Guys, we got about an hour or so on our run. And yeah man, so we're on a pretty busy street right now, making our way through, getting honked at, having people throw their different reactions at us, but who knows, whatever. We're gonna stay strong, stay focused, right? Because it's something really you should consider, I think about, right? Because in your life, you're gonna run into different, I would call them influences, right? Different critics, people that want to judge whatever it is that you're doing, right? Whether it is you want to be a doctor, right? A lawyer, professional rapper, right? Singer, entertainer, right? So many people, have their ears open wide to what people may, judgments that they may make of them, right? As we have a bunch of gnats flying around and bothering us. But here we are. We're gonna see if we can cross this street and essentially not get hit by a car, right? That doesn't even want to release its accelerator for us, but it's okay. But it's awesome. It's all good. No complaints, no worries. We're good. And right, essentially what we were saying, right, staying focused, because throughout your life, you're gonna have people who are either gonna doubt you, criticize you, ridicule you, right? Make fun of what it is that you're doing. And what you gotta realize is that you can't really listen to it so much, but at least you can hear it, but don't let it impact you, right? It takes, a true skill to develop that, right? And practice that. So let's see. Now we gotta wait for these people and essentially see. Let's go. So finally, right? That whole, it's a training of your thought process, right? How it is that you think, right? And operate, right? Because for so many people, they will just cover up their ears and eyes to the criticism, but then, the day that they face that criticism head on, right? It's inescapable. They're not able to avoid it. It can haunt them, right? Make them fearful, second guessing themselves and what they're doing, right? So that path isn't the best, right? The path of avoidance, we would call it, right? Even the path of least resistance. And, for many people, they may think of it that way, right? They try to become blind to the criticism, right? And the compliments, right? Positive encouragement, that's okay, right? That's awesome, right? And far too often, when they get more and more of it, they start to forget it, right? They lose sensitivity to it, right? They almost become tolerant to that positive nature, right? It can happen to everyday people, and it happens a lot to celebrities, right? Come to think about it, a lot of them, I can remember, would say examples like this, right? When they started to become more famous, more in the spotlight, right? As more and more people started to become able to throw their opinions at them, what they started to realize is that the positive compliments, although they might get a lot of them, right? The overwhelming majority of opinions from others or encounters would be positive. Those negative ones would be so, I would say unforgettable, right? Almost like a scar would form from them, right? Even though they were happening so less frequently than the positive moments and encouragements. And to an untrained person, right, we would call it untrained, because I would say we are not naturally able to think like this, right? Think positively, right? Use a positive to outweigh the negative, right? If you're not trained to think this way, those little negative moments of criticism, can be horrible, feel the worst, right? We would almost think of like, if someone gets called pretty 10 times a day, right, 7 days a week, right, them hearing the word pretty isn't gonna feel the same as the first time they were told. But if God forbid you called them ugly, right, it's like the worst thing in the world, right? As we got somebody with a super loud motor driving around, and essentially come to think about it, right? How able, no, how good are you in handling criticism, right? Handling negativity, right? People making judgments of you, particularly bad ones, right? A lot of the, I would say, a great skill that a lot of employers are looking for in candidates, right? Besides what everyone thinks of, the education, right? Social skills. But a big one, people would say, is coachability, right? Are you able to handle somebody telling you everything you're doing wrong and correct it, right? Such a forgotten, I would say, skill, right? Aspect, you know, almost weapon that you wield throughout your journey, right? And come to think about it, right, we, you know, have learned to deal with it better and better. But, you know, it doesn't mean that everyone around you is going to be able to handle it as good as you, right? Think about that, right? As you start to learn better, you know, learn how to be better and better at handling it, right? Because when it happened to us, we in particular, you know, wanted to correct other people, right? We noticed the bad in other people, and that's okay. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the person is going to handle it the right way, right? The way that you're supposed to, right? Not taking it personal and making the adjustments that you're supposed to make, right? Crazy, right? People, you know, don't think like that, right? They take every criticism as a personal attack, right? They, you know, become in denial of it, reject it, and when they reject it, far too often they reject you as well, right? Because you're the deliverer of it, right? Whether it may be right or wrong, whatever criticism they get, they can't handle it. And if you're working for a company, right, for a team, that's very bad, right? Because, you know, throughout a game, throughout a project, you know, there's certain problems that are going to arise, right? And due to the very nature of those problems, just means that there are improvements that can be made, right? Potential tweaks and so forth, right? Just like a video game, right? We are not born, you know, becoming crazy, amazing video game players, right? We learn by playing the game over and over again, right? If it's a first-person shooter, right, like Call of Duty, you learn by joining the game, going to war or a battle on the map, fighting and dying, right, and coming back and dying, right, and getting a little streak here and there, but just doing it over and over again, encountering that failure, that resistance, right? You may be killed, you know, by someone, well, you will definitely be killed by someone better than you, right? And then you start to notice, you know, what they're doing that you're not, right? You watch the kill cams, you might spectate them, right? Learn, you know, from other individuals. What are they doing good and not good, right? That's such a crucial thing, because you can learn, you know, of course, everyone knows this by seeing what people are good at and how they do it good. But you can also learn, you know, from what people do that is bad, right? So within every person you come across, given the nature that we're not perfect, no one is, there's good and bad to notice from everyone. And knowing that, realize that within yourself you have good and badness, right? So many people, you know, aren't able, give us 1 second, to think that way, right? They think of themselves, you know, almost like a perfect being, right? They're always right. Someone cuts them off on the highway, it's always the other person's fault, right? They don't take responsibility, right? And that responsibility is going to come from the first realization, you know, that you're not amazing at everything you do, right? You have good aspects and bad aspects of you, and that's amazing. That's the glory of life, right? Getting good at the bad things, right? Getting better at the good things that you are at, teaching others, right? Passing it on, creating a legacy. That's the beauty of life, right? Because if we are all born with everything, right, being perfect in every area, there's no fun, right? There's no joy in improvement, no joy in getting up and being able to put in the work, getting better, seeing a beautiful thing called progress, right? Everything, as we're gonna push this out of our way, everything will be stagnant, right? Such a scary thought. We can be stagnating, you know, even when we have everything, right? People think of stagnation is just, you know, when you don't have what you want, right? When you're stuck, right? Stuck on a math problem, on a physics problem, right? Test, whatever it is. But being stuck can often result from having too much, right? Being, you would even say, spoiled with the success, right? Because you lose ambition, right? There's nothing really left for you to improve, right? That's why so many people, you know, have their career, right? They may become awesome doctors, but the second they step foot on a golf course, they suck. But then they fall in love with it because it gives them something to work at and get better at, right? And that's where the whole stress relief is going to come from. While the golf may be fun, right? Swinging the club, scoring, and so forth. But if you ask yourself, what is the scoring, right? It's a sign that you're getting better, a sign of progress, right? Because if we were all robots, right? If you can imagine a perfect robot playing golf and scoring every time, that wouldn't be the most entertaining thing in the world after a while. It would just be the same monotony, right? Although it may be a beautiful technological achievement, right, to understand and learn from as we have someone recording us, but right, and even that achievement is looked at as an improvement, right? As progress, as a step of getting better, right? Progressing the technology to the point where it simply can't miss, right, when it goes to the golf course. And, you know, essentially think of it that way. I think about life just as being about progress, right? A bunch of different steps, you know, in getting to where you want to go, right? Not about the final product, having everything, the flashy cars, flashy houses, but being excited about the path to them, the path to getting there, right? So many people, you know, almost feel incompetent, right? Empty, right? That they don't have things that the celebrities and famous entrepreneurs that they look at might have, right? The multi-million-dollar houses and cars and everything, right? People feel empty that they don't have them. But what's more important, what's more worthy, more worthwhile, you know, simply, you know, the ability to work towards it, right? Forget having all these things, right? They're great, they're fun, but you can go 200 miles an hour in a Ferrari, and, you know, you can go and overlook the city in your penthouse mansion, but, you know, how much happiness and fun do they truly bring long term, right? Although you may objectively compare them, right, at price tags, right? This house or condo, it's $15 million versus my dinky little $250,000 apartment, right? So, yes, objectively comparing them, the money, you know, is bigger. It looks great. There's more square footage, undeniable. But with that square footage and everything, it becomes the same monotony, right? If you're not growing, that's why we're put here, right? We're not machines. We're not robots. We don't do everything perfect, right? Because the more human you are, believe it or not, the happier you will be, because you are actuating your life's purpose. Right? Your life's purpose isn't to become, a perfect specimen, right? A robot, right? A clone, of pretty much something else. But because if everyone was like that, we would all just be clones, but there would be no differences, right? That's why we even say things like beauty is subjective, right? Someone can look at a particular painting and deem it as worthless, while another person can look at it and see it as having value in excess of millions of dollars. Beauty of life, right? So it's the imperfections that make us who we are, right? If you get a cut, scar on your face, don't look at it so much as an imperfection, right? As something to look down upon, right? It may be an imperfection, but guess what? It's making you unique. It's making you who you are, right? When people come across you, they realize that they're talking to you, right? If your name is Juan, they realize that they're talking to Juan, or Stephanie, right? If you're a girl, right? Whatever you are. And it's essentially those things that make us unique and different from everyone else that make us beautiful, right? It's not so much about having, the cultural ideal, right? Symmetrical face, right? Being super tall in height, huge muscles, right? Because amongst different cultures, they have different definitions of it, right? And what does that tell you? That there's no universal ideal. So that ideal can be tweaked and manipulated, right, to whatever you think is right, whatever you deem as necessary. And what we'll say is an important point of this, or metric. Yes, although you can't directly define, a particular ideal, right, that works for everyone, but what you can realize is the growth, right? Going to the gym, getting bigger muscles, going to the library, getting smarter, getting more knowledgeable about a certain topic. That's undeniable, right? And while some people may see the ideal, as being smart, let's say about, medicine, right? And you decide to study physics. Who cares, right? Because you are living your life according to you. You are making yourself different, separating yourself from the crowd, right? Of people who don't or aren't simply able to do what you can do, right? The ability is going to come from the hours and hours of practice, repetition, doing it over and over again, and messing up, doing it again, getting it right, doing it that way, right? That's where the ability comes from, right? Not simply just being born with everything, right? Even if you are, born with huge talents and, we would call them abilities, yes, but, you're still gonna wanna work and improve and get better, right? Hone your craft, right? Which is going to take time and consistent effort, right? In order to progress, right? And get there. And, essentially for you, just do that, right? Just go and work, right? Go to the gym, exercise, go to the library, study, go to the office, crank out some hours of work, and simply be working towards a better you, right? Whatever you define it as, right? There's no universal standard, but the greatness of life is just in the improvement, right? Whatever it may be defined as, right? Not directly as a particular set of money or house, right? That's why there's so many different, you'd say house is valued at $1 million, $500,000, right? No house is built equal. And imagine if all the houses that are worth $1 million look the same design, same square footage, even same location, right? Which is physically impossible, but you get the gist, right? Even with your money, what you can buy is different, right? That difference is going to come from the subjective nature of it, right? And while people may argue that certain factors like the square footage, of course, if you bring it up, the value is going to go up within the house. Yes, but if you take all the houses valued at, let's say, $1 million, there's going to be some with more square footage and some with less. But are you a person that values square footage more, or amenities like a pool, a gate, right? How modern it is. All those things, make life unique and beautiful, right? That's why no matter what neighborhood you're driving through, all the houses look different, right? They're not built the same, right? That's why, it allows people to do things like explore their creativity. That's why it's so beautiful, right? Those different paintings that people make, right? Because no, $100 painting is going to be the same. It's going to be very different from painting to painting. And, think of all of our life's creations as paintings, right? Or like the houses. Yes, people may attach a particular monetary value to them, and the value may go up and down over time, but essentially the idea remains the same. The true value is in your perception of it, right? The beauty in the eye of the beholder, right? And so many people can confuse, right, their muscle mass or how much money they make with how attractive they are, right? Talking about relationships. And it doesn't really matter so much, right? How much body fat you have, muscle mass, right? Are you going to walk around with a paper on your forehead that tells everybody what body fat you're at? And when they notice it, they're going to get either more or less attracted to you, right? Based upon that? No, doesn't matter, right? And you would even say that two people, at 10% body fat are going to look radically different from one another. Some people are going to find one person more attractive than the other, while other people are going to find the other person, right? It doesn't matter, right? Life is very subjective, right? And we see so many people taking things so personally, right? It'd be like you taking your $1 million painting, trying to sell it to everyone in the world and expecting them to pay for it, right? Be willingly to make a deal with you, right? That's the whole idea of the relationship, right? It's a deal. And your painting may be worth $100,000, whatever it is, it's subjective. And based on that nature alone, whether or not the person subjectively realizes your value, is what's going to be important, right? It's not, you shouldn't stress yourself about it, right? Not taking it personally. Right? It'd be like the artist that is angry that not everybody wants to pay a certain value for their painting. All that matters is they get a sale at the price they want for it, right? It just takes one person to make it happen, right? They don't need the acceptance of every person, right? The painting is still gonna get sold at that same price, right? The one that they want for it. And so many people take, the latter or the former, whatever it is, mindset into their life, right? They want every girl or guy to accept them, right? Be worthy, or themselves appear worthy to be dateable by them, right? They want everyone attracted to them, so they'll go into relationships, right? Enjoy it for a couple of days, weeks, get bored of it, and be back on the market looking for another person, right? Because they want that same hit that they got when they first started. Feeling of acceptance, right? Of their value, right? Of their manliness, of their muscles, or whatever it may be, right? They want that spark ignited again and again. But to tell you the truth, it never gets old, right? It's always going to be fleeting, that feeling, right? That good feeling that you might get. And what you got to realize is that it's all in your head, right? It's so subjective, right? It's not, personal or concrete at all, right? Whether or not somebody likes you or not, all that matters really is whether or not you're being yourself, right? Ask yourself that, right? Are you acting the way you want to, or are you acting the way you think someone wants you to act, right? One's gonna make you really happy long term, the other probably isn't, right? You can probably guess what it is, and it is acting the way you want to, right? Living life for you. And by that virtue, guess what? You're probably gonna be even more attractive, right? Because you're gonna be more happy, more in tune with yourself, less caring about what people think about you, right? Truly attractive traits, right? As a guy that you probably want to have. And you know, really think about that, right? When you interact with girls, right, the opposite sex, do you feel yourself conforming to a particular set of ideals, right? Ways you think you should act in front of them, right? We've all had those friends that we hang out with, right? If you're a dude, guy friends that act one way, you know, with you when you're in the park playing basketball with them, and another way when you introduce some girls into the equation, right? They act weird, they might crack weird jokes, say dumb stuff, and you know, essentially, do you really want to be around those people, right? We would call them fake, right? Non-genuine. And perhaps, you know, you really have to look at yourself and think, are you acting this way as well, right? Are you really alienating other people, right? As we have to wait for all these cars to get out of the way so we can cross this road, right? But yeah, man, think about that, because those fake people, those ingenuine persons, are those individuals, you know, that change, right? And while there's different skills that you can get, right, chameleonic skills, right? You want to be a social chameleon and be able to, you know, find things in common with people, right? If you're hanging out with a bunch of real estate guys, are you going to want to talk, you know, about like different things like photography, right? Unless you're talking with other photographers, right? Find things in common with people and, you know, hone in on them, right? Talk about them, right? Become proficient or exhibit your proficiency in them, right? In order to, we wouldn't say satisfy the other people, but, you know, increases your social IQ. But the example that we were talking about before, are those individuals who, you know, we would just call them fake people that lie, right? Two-faced people, everyone's heard that term. Act one way in front of you and behind your back act a whole different way, right? So many people, I would even say in the gym, you can bump into them and they won't give you the time of day, right? Appear cold. But guess what? If you were a pretty girl, or even we've seen direct examples of this, 10-15 minutes later, if you're a pretty girl, they'll be all over you, right? There's so many examples where I would be in the gym and I might ask someone something simple, right, as how many sets they have left, and maybe ask them about themselves, what they're studying, whatever, and try to get to know them and completely get the cold shoulder, right? Almost appearing angry and cold towards me. Then 5-10 minutes later, they're talking with a girl for extended periods of time, right? Laughing, joking, and I've even gotten curious and listened to the conversation, and you know, they almost appear ingenuine, right? The person they were, hello, hi, what's up? The person that they were 10 minutes ago is completely different than the person they are now, right? They almost transform themselves as different, right? And girls notice this. People notice this. It's very easy to tell, right? Because they're putting on a mask. You can see it, right? Looking outside of it, I could tell that they were putting on an act, right? A show for, you know, that girl. They weren't acting themselves, right? You want to be the same person everywhere you go, right? Obviously, maybe in front of the girl, you don't want to look weak and inferior, but, you know, don't obsess about it, right? And I would even say that being yourself and vulnerable and simply just not caring what they think is actually going to be better than you think it is, right? It might scare some people, turn them off, but in the end of the day, it's going to attract the right people for you. Those that are happy with you the way you are, right? Not an image that you're portraying that you're selling. And those are going to be the awesome relationships that you're going to have. Awesome people in your life are going to come from that, right? Because you can only keep up with these, you know, fake images for so long, right? These masks, right? They require a lot of conscious effort to maintain, right? You can't keep them up day in and day out, let alone 10-15 minutes like we would observe in some cases, right? So essentially think about that, right? Think how you could be genuine in your day-to-day interactions with people, right? How, you know, genuine are you? How true to yourself are you in the people you come across with in your day-to-day life, right? Do you feel yourself selling yourself short, laughing when you don't usually laugh, holding in your excitement, your anger, whatever it is that you feel, right? Fostering that energy for someone else, right? Not you, right? Because you think that's what they want, right? And of course, there's an element of being nice, right? Having manners, right? Being respectful, right? You don't want to be a total jerk, right? Someone that people don't want to be around. But essentially, you got to ask yourself what's going to make you happy, right? And that is being yourself, right? If you're a nerdy, funny guy, be a nerdy, funny guy. If you're a big, you know, steroid head, masculine guy with a huge beard, own it, right? If you're from the country, own that. Why? If you're from the country, you have a huge, you know, beard and you grew up in the South on a farm and all this stuff. Why are you going to act like a city person, right? Someone that grew up in New York in an apartment and went to, you know, a university, so forth, right? You're selling yourself short, right? Because you're trying to please those individuals around you who might be like that, right? It's not going to make you happy. And by taking that into account, you just have to be who you are, right? Just be yourself. So cliche, right? So I would say overused, but so important, right? Even though people may hear it, you would even say reject it. They don't consider it important, right? Crazy. And I would say, you know, essentially that a lot of the stuff that we may hear, good advice, even bad advice, we don't process it correctly, right? Sometimes the bad advice can linger in our heads for too long, and the good advice we could completely look over and forget, not apply, right? Because how good is it, you know, to try and attend all these classes and seminars and workshops, right? Try to gain all this knowledge that you never use, right? It'd be like going to school, getting a degree after 8-10 years, right? A whole doctorate, medical degree, everything, and you decide, I'm not going to use it, right? Right? Although that happens actually to quite a few people, but you know, it's almost, you would consider it a waste of time, though, even though there's different lessons to be learned, skills to be built. But we're taking the example of the knowledge itself, right? The practical abilities, right? So many people might read different books, say on charisma, right? Social skills, confidence, and they never truly practice those abilities, right? They might just read and read and read. We would even think about people that read. Whoa, give us a second. People that read these relationship books, right? They, you know, essentially try to either become master pickup artists or just get a girlfriend or even boyfriend, right? So they study, they read and read and read, and by the time comes to where they, you know, are confronted by these people or come across them, they might not even say a word, become very nervous and paralyzed by fear that they don't do anything, right? Just a vivid example. And give us a second as we're getting a phone call. For one brief moment, probably gonna reject this one, but let's see. Give us one moment and we will be back on here. So let's see. Whew. yeah, man, so about that good advice and bad advice, right? Learning how to process it and apply it correctly, right? So if you're reading a book, don't stop by reading alone, right? Just reading. And, you know, actually try to apply it, right? That same day, try to read it as early as you can, right, in the morning, so you have the rest of the day to try and apply it, right? A new skill, right? Like a cookbook, right? It'd be like people reading a bunch of different cookbooks and never actually trying, you know, stepping foot in the kitchen and trying these different recipes, right? Over time, they're gonna forget more and more those recipes, no matter how many cookbooks they read. And that's the whole trick of life, right? Not just over analyzing, strategizing, and thinking, right? Although that has its place, but only if you're actually doing the conscious effort, right? The work that it takes to get there, right? And, you know, a vivid example we think of is that there's so many different books on the topic of basketball, right? How to shoot a jump shot, right? How to play defense, how to even coach, right? Other people. But if you had never stepped foot on a basketball court after reading all these great books, you're gonna have no idea what to do, right? Even think about all the NBA stars that play today and legends, right? People in the Hall of Fame. Those people could have read any book they wanted to, and they might even have read, right? It's different books. But, you know, essentially the more important thing was them going into the gym and practicing their jump shot. Actually, you know, putting in the work to get there. And, you know, essentially you have to think about that, right? Think about how you can work on yourself, improve your ability to get better and better and better, right? Active practice, right? Because we would consider the book reading as a passive form of it, right? And, you know, you could do one or the other, and it won't be the same as you doing both at the same time, right? Although the more important one is the active. As you have people honking at us, but back to back, even the same honks, but might have gotten a little thrown off there, but yeah, my work on the active practice, right? We can read book after book on running, and we actually have, right, through Jeff Galloway's marathon book, amazing book. But if we actually never step foot and try to run, we are not going to get those skills right through that direct practice. And I don't know why, but so many people try to do this, especially when it comes to relationships, right? They read all these different pickup books, right? How to get girls, right? They learn all these different, we would call them openers, right? Pickup lines, right? Just say to a girl to try to get them, you know, to like them and maybe become their girlfriend, whatever. And, you know, essentially they get paralyzed by that because there's so many different options, to be honest, different ways you can go about it, right? So they get this thing called analysis paralysis. It'd be just like you reading a bunch of different books on different ways to shoot a basketball shot, and you actually go to the gym, pick up a basketball, and you don't know how to shoot it, but you have a paralysis. So when you even try to shoot, you might shoot terribly because you're not sure of yourself, right? You don't have a consistent method, right? And the truth is, everybody's method is different, right? We're all unique individuals, right? That'd be like, a big example was when I was playing baseball and people learning how to swing correctly, right? The truth is that everybody swings a little bit differently, right? But you have the basic foundations, right? Loading, right? Driving your body back, and then going forward, pivoting your back foot. Everyone knows those little features, but those little things, right? Like holding your hands up high before the pitch is thrown, shaking your bat a little bit, right? Those little things are between you and you, right? Whether or not you feel comfortable doing them or not. And the only way to find that out is by you actually going to the game and playing, trying them out, and seeing what works best for you, what makes you feel the most comfortable and confident, right? As we have some gnats flying around us, hopefully not inside us. Ew, we don't want to be eating bugs for dinner tonight. Kind of gross, right? That's even a fact. Many people, they don't actually, we eat a certain number of bugs per year. So gross, so disgusting, right? Especially as runners, cyclists, somehow, some way, those bugs find their way in our stomachs, right? So disgusting. Ew, gross. But who knows, you can get some protein off of it, right? Get a little snack. And what about you, Dave? Oh, we didn't want you to stop, but it's oh, okay, here's a light. And essentially, right, those little things like that, ew. And also too, it brings up the whole idea that a lot of the pain and, you know, unfortunate feelings that we get are due to our conscious perception of them, right? Our ability to see it, right? Because so many people didn't know that. They don't know, you know, that they eat bugs, right? Everyone does, right? Whether we like it or not, it's just an accidental thing that happens. But if you know about it, it's gonna feel gross, right? You're gonna feel horrible about it, right? You might feel more hesitant, you know, when you go out and potentially have one. I get fear versus someone who doesn't know and isn't gonna feel bad about it, right? They might run outside and be confident and comfortable. So there's so much of these feelings are just in our head, right? These fears, and even things like, let's say, heights, right? A big fear for many are the heights really making you scary, right? It's all in your head, right? As long as you know not to act crazy and run over the ledge, all you gotta do is stay still and you'll be fine. But, you know, essentially, a lot of it's just in your head, right? Because if you know, essentially take the same sidewalk and you put it, you know, 10,000 feet in the air, it's gonna be a lot scarier, but it's gonna be the same sidewalk. The mission is still the same, but the stakes are higher. And through your mind, it's going to make it seem harder than what it actually is, right? It's the same thing, right? That's why players, you know, shoot free throw after free throw and shot after shot in practice. So when they go in the game, when the pressure's on and they're asked to perform, it's easy, right? It becomes just another free throw, right? Good analogy for life, right? Stephen Curry does this, LeBron James does this, so many players do this. And why not try that in your day-to-day life, right? As we just finished our run, and we're gonna run some sprints now and do a little bit of stairs, and we'll be back in like 5-10 minutes for all you guys to simply enjoy the stream again. So thank you for watching, and we'll be back shortly.